Alex Marquez had already made up his mind. His neck was not fully healed, a fresh crash was still ringing through his body, and he was going out for qualifying anyway. His own Gresini crew stood in front of him and told him no. He kept telling them yes, and the person who finally shut it down was not a doctor, not a team boss, not a manager. It was the brother the entire paddock calls the most ruthless man on the grid. So why did Marc Marquez spend that Assen weekend protecting Alex instead of pushing him harder? And what did Marc see coming that everyone else in that garage missed? Here is what makes this more than a family footnote. Alex was not nursing a bruise. Weeks earlier at the Barcelona round, he had fractured his right collarbone and cracked the C7 vertebra at the base of his neck, the kind of damage that ends careers when it goes wrong a second time. Assen was his first real race back from it. Then, on Friday, he crashed again, straight onto the same right side surgeons had just bolted back together. A rider in that state does not need a poor result in qualifying. He needs one more heavy landing on that same right side, and the entire comeback is gone. That is the scene Marc walked into. Inside the Gresini box, this was not a calm medical chat. The crew kept telling Alex the same thing, again and again. Do not go out for Q2. Do not go out for Q2. Do not go out for Q2. And every single time, Alex pushed back. He wanted the grid slot. He had earned direct entry to that session by going 10th in practice, and to a racer, sitting it out feels like surrender. The team had the medical case, the logic, the caution. What they did not have was the authority to actually stop him. So the pressure kept building, minute by minute, and Alex kept drifting toward pit lane. Then Marc stepped in. Not with a suggestion, not with a gentle, maybe think about it. He said, "You aren't doing Q2." No option attached, no room left to argue. The most decorated rider in that box walked over and simply lifted the decision out of his brother's hands. And sit with who was doing the protecting here. This is the man the sport has cast as the villain of every rivalry he has ever been in. Why was he the one reaching for the brakes? To understand why Marc did this, you have to see what he was actually looking at. He was not looking at a tough competitor being brave. He was looking at a body that had already been broken once this season and had not finished healing. The collarbone was still held together by a metal plate. The neck fracture was the kind doctors track in weeks, not days. And Alex had just thrown himself down the road again on Friday, battering the same right shoulder for the second time in weeks. To everyone else, Alex on that bike looked like determination. To Marc, it looked like a countdown. And here is the part that gives the whole thing its weight. Marc was not lecturing his brother from theory. He is the one person alive who had already made this exact mistake and paid the full price for it himself. Go back to Jerez, 2020. Marc crashed hard, broke the humerus in his right arm, went straight to surgery to have the arm plated, and then did the thing the sport still cannot quite believe. He came back 1 week later. Same circuit, next race on the calendar, cleared by the doctors, out on track before the bone had any business holding a MotoGP bike down. It unravelled almost at once. The plate in his arm failed, reportedly while he was opening a window at home. That forced a second operation, then a third when an infection set in, then a fourth, in 2022, a major operation, because the bone had healed rotated more than 30 degrees out of line. One rushed weekend became 4 operations and the best part of 2 seasons erased. Marc himself has called that comeback the biggest mistake of his career. Not a bad race, not a wrong tyre. The biggest mistake he has ever made. So when he watched Alex about to force a half-healed body through a qualifying session for a couple of grid places on a Saturday afternoon, he was not seeing a risk. He was seeing a rerun. And he was the only man in that garage who had already lived the ending. You can argue the other side. Riders race hurt all the time. Broken bones, cracked ribs, hands that barely close. This whole sport runs on men swallowing pain. That is exactly why the usual warning bounces off. Every voice telling a rider to stop sounds identical to him. Cautious people who have never made the call from inside the leathers. But Marc is not one of those voices. He has the record that forces a racer to actually listen, and the surgical scars down that right arm to back every word. When the most aggressive rider of his generation tells you to stand down, that is not caution talking, it is memory. And that changes what this moment really was. Because look at what Gresini was truly facing that weekend. Alex's teammate, Fermin Aldeguer, had crashed at the same Assen and fractured a bone in his back. He is out. For this week's German Grand Prix at the Sachsenring, Gresini is fielding a one-rider team. No stand-in called up, just Alex. The garage was already down to a single fit Marquez. If Alex had forced his way through qualifying and gone down once more, the team was one bad landing from an empty box. So Marc's order did not only protect his brother, it protected the last bike Gresini had left standing. And notice how it ended. Alex sat out that session and still finished the Grand Prix in fifth, quietly his best day since the injury. And that is what flips the whole story. People look at Marc Marquez and see a man who protects exactly one thing, his own advantage, and burns the rest to get it. The rival who hangs you out to dry. The brother who, surely, would put himself first. But watch what he actually did. He pulled rank on a grown man and a Grand Prix winner, took away something Alex badly wanted, and gained nothing for himself on the timing screens. People thought Marc only ever guards his own edge. At Assen, he was guarding Alex against the exact mistake that once nearly finished Marc. That is not the soft side of a hard man. It is the same hard instinct, aimed at the one opponent he has never truly beaten, his own worst decision. So let us be honest about who Marc Marquez really is, because this is the piece the ruthless villain version always leaves out. The thing that makes him frightening on a bike is not aggression for its own sake. It is a flat refusal to accept an outcome he knows is wrong. He talked himself into one bad idea once at Jerez, and it cost him operation after operation and the better part of 2 seasons. And he has plainly decided he will never watch someone he loves walk into the same trap. At Assen, that refusal did not arrive as a move around the outside. It arrived as a flat order to his brother in a garage. Same man. Same steel, turned, for once, towards saving a career instead of ending a rival's afternoon. The paddock calls him cold. What he did at Assen looks like the opposite, and it took the coldest reputation in the sport to make the warning finally land. The paddock wondered why the grid's most ruthless rider spent his weekend hitting the brakes for someone else. Now you know, he was the only one who had already lived that mistake and come back from it. So was this Marc protecting his brother, or Marc forgiving himself? Let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now.